Have you seen this? AOC thought she was on safe ground in this interview with left-leaning state-funded NPR, but she embarrassed herself when the conversation drifted to the Democrat lawfare that Donald Trump alleges. Just take a look at this, because I think that it reveals something that she didn't really want to.
Some Republican, or many perhaps, will be watching this, listening to this, and thinking, wait a minute, actually, you're the ones who are prosecuting us. You are the guys who are weaponizing the Justice Department. How would you respond to somebody who may be thinking that?
In what way? In what way? Is the very presence
Putting Trump on trial would be their example, I suppose.
Yes. I mean, here's the deal. In the United States, there is a jury where we are judged by our peers, and he was found guilty in court on 34 felony charges. If people want to say it was weaponized, I mean, it is hard-pressed to say that there's a partisan argument for that. You have Senator Menendez, famously.
Democratic senator from New Jersey. Convicted, yeah.
And to 11 years in prison.
What? That's how easily she brushes off that entire question? The U.S. Department of Justice in the past 4 years of the Democratic administration have been the single greatest drop in public trust than any other department, according to Gallup. Now nearly 2/3 of the country reporting to a decline in trust. All of those people aren't just imagining it, and it can't simply be wished away. By the way, we're speaking the hard truth that no one else wants to say, so please be sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell to never miss out. Now, it is interesting that AOC is still running with this outdated and frankly weak platitude from the Democrats when we've got the hindsight of the kind of show trials of Hunter Biden to give the illusion of impartiality only for him to pardon by his dad near the end of his term. That's what people like Vivek Ramaswamy had been calling out, even as far back as June, calling it all a smokescreen to deflect attention and legitimize the Trump conviction on behalf of the Democrat-led DOJ. What you're seeing from AOC now is the most typical non-answer that you could expect from a politician ever.
We see over and over again that there has historically been an independent Justice Department whose job it is to be separate and apart from the presidency and the executive branch. Just because someone was held to an equal standard of the law does not mean that the Justice Department was weaponized.
Equal standard of the law? Turning bookkeeping misdemeanors into serious felonies and using every trick to extend the statute of limitations in New York has no legal precedent for that to even make sense. Even some of his most ambitious prosecutors like Alvin Bragg and Fani Willis basically campaigned for their position by stating all of their qualifications to get Trump, which is the phrase that Fani allegedly used before she took on the RICO case against him in Georgia. So no, there's no one buying this in America today because it's pretty clear how the legal arena had become an unfortunate political battleground when it should have remained neutral. And arguably AOC did exactly that over this next question when responding to whether New York City, which she represents, will try to use sanctuary cities policies to create roadblocks to Tom Homan and the federal administration's crackdown on illegal immigration.
You had a recent dispute, if that's the right word, with Tom Homan, the president's Homeland Security czar, so-called. You held an online forum, a Know Your Rights forum, that he didn't like. What were you doing? What was your goal as you saw it?
My job is to educate and act as a liaison of critical information to my constituents. And I was informing all of my constituents of their constitutional protections, and in particular, their constitutional protections against illegal search and seizure in the United States.
Homan was upset, I suppose, because he felt that you were giving advice to people who were here illegally. Mm-hmm. Were you?
I was giving advice to all of my constituents. Yeah.
He said he was going to report you, or even that he did reach out to the Department of Justice. Have you heard from the Department of Justice?
I have not, and I intend on reaching out to the Department of Justice to inquire.
Really? What would your question be for the Department of Justice?
Well, there is a member of the Trump administration who is threatening and seeks to open an inquiry, and are you going to do it?
What would you learn? What do you hope to learn from that exchange?
I think it's important to know where this administration stands and if they intend on using political intimidation to silence their critics.
Did you notice that interesting sleight of hand? What does she mean by constituents? Legally, constituents are legal citizens that are eligible to vote, which means nearly 500,000 illegal immigrants of the city in New York do not fall under the definition. So the seminar she did informing her constituents that they don't have to open doors or answer questions to ICE officials has landed her in pretty interesting legal ground, and that's perhaps why she wrote a letter to AG Pam Bondi, dressing up that seminar as just her free speech asking the DOJ whether the Department of Justice has yielded to political pressure and attempts to weaponize the agency against elected officials whose speech they disagree with. Interestingly enough, she had run-ins with Tom Homan face-to-face over a similar debate on illegal immigration, including this clip from a year ago.
Mr. Homan, your name is on this. Is this correct?
Yes, I signed that memo.
So you are the author of the family separation policy?
I am not the author of this memo.
You're not the author, but you signed the memo.
Yes, a zero tolerance memo.
So you provided the official recommendation to Secretary Nielsen on for the United States to pursue family separation.
I gave Secretary Nielsen numerous recommendations on how to secure the border and save lives.
But it says here that you gave her numerous options, but the recommendation was option 3, family separation.
What I'm saying, this is not the only paper where we've given the Secretary numerous options to secure the border and save lives.
And so the recommendation, of the many that you recommended family separation.
I recommended zero tolerance.
Which includes family separation.
The same as is with every U.S. citizen parent gets arrested when they're with a child.
Zero tolerance was interpreted as the policy that separated children from their
If I get arrested for DUI and I have a young child in the car, I'm going to be separated. When I was a police officer in New York and I arrested a father for domestic violence, I separated that father
Mr.
from his
Holman,
family.
with all due respect, legal asylees are not charged with any crime.
When you're into the country illegally, it's violation 8 United States Code 1325.
Seeking asylum is legal.
If you want to seek asylum and go through the port of entry, do it the legal way. The Attorney General of the United States has made that clear.
Okay.
I think that sets both of them up for a clash now that Tom Homan actually has the power to implement that code, plus the 40 years of experience behind him on how to do it. And in an environment where one of the greatest reasons why the Trump administration was even voted into office was the illegal immigration crisis, I don't think they're going to let AOC be a roadblock for that in a long time. But let me know in the comments how you see the next few months turning out, because what happens in New York over this issue could become a template for what we see next across the country.